Have you ever considered that at this very moment, as you lie completely still, a silent and spectacular industrial revolution is occurring within you? Beneath the surface of your skin, tens of trillions of independent, microscopic entities are communicating, building, and breathing in a state of absolute, wordless cooperation. You are not merely a single person resting in a room. You are a vast biological civilization, an intricately layered masterpiece of natural engineering that has been perfected over millions of years. Tonight, we are going to peel back the curtain on this hidden world. We are going to explore the profound architecture of your own existence, beginning with the foundational blueprint that organizes your body from the smallest atom to the complete living whole. Lesson 1. Introduction to human anatomy and the levels of organization. In our daily lives, we often take the simple act of existing for granted. We move, we think, and we feel, rarely pausing to marvel at the staggering complexity that makes these experiences possible. We look in the mirror and see a single, unified reflection. Yet that reflection is the result of a hierarchy of life, so precise and elegant, it borders on the miraculous. Tonight, we take the first step of our journey together by exploring the levels of structural organization. We will begin our study at a realm so small it is invisible to the eye, and gradually ascend the staircase of biological complexity until we understand how every tiny part contributes to the magnificent breathing organism that is you, resting here in the quiet of the night. To begin our study of the human body, we must first establish the two essential languages of biology, anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is the study of structure, the map of the body, the shapes of the bones, the locations of the organs, and the precise physical arrangement of every part. Physiology, however, is the study of function. It is the story of how those parts actually work together to sustain life. In the natural world, form always follows function. The shape of a heart valve is perfectly designed to prevent the backflow of blood. The thinness of a lung membrane is perfectly calibrated to allow oxygen to pass through. You cannot truly know one without the other. To understand how you are built, we must view the body as a series of ascending building blocks, known as the levels of structural organization. Our journey begins at the very first step of the staircase, the chemical level. Long before we can speak of cells or tissues, we must acknowledge the atoms, the smallest units of matter. In your body, 4 primary elements, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, make up the vast majority of your physical weight. These atoms do not exist in isolation. They link together to form molecules. 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom bond to create water, the essential flowing solvent of life. Other atoms arrange themselves into breathtakingly complex twisting ladders of DNA, the genetic library that carries the blueprints for everything you are. When the right molecules assemble in a specific, highly organized way, we reach the cellular level. The cell is the most basic structural and functional unit of life. You can think of a single cell not as a simple speck, but as an ancient, thriving, and densely populated walled city. Every cell is bounded by a cell membrane, a fluid and discerning gatekeeper that decides what nutrients are welcomed inside and what waste products are escorted out. Deep within the center of this city lies the nucleus, the governor's palace where your DNA is safely guarded. scattered through the city's watery streets, are the mitochondria, the tireless power plants that generate the energy required for every thought and every heartbeat. You possess roughly 30 trillion of these microscopic cities, each one a living testament to the complexity of your design. As we ascend to the next step, we reach the tissue level. A single cell, for all its individual brilliance, is limited in what it can achieve. However, when groups of similar cells with a common origin and function join together, they form a tissue. You might picture this as a master weaver at a loom, taking individual, fragile threads and binding them together to create a strong, versatile fabric. The human body is woven from 4 primary types of tissue. First, there is epithelial tissue, which forms the protective coverings of your body and the delicate linings of your internal cavities. Second is connective tissue, the most abundant type, which serves as the supportive scaffolding. Your bones, cartilage, and even your blood are types of connective tissue. Third is muscle tissue, specialized for contraction and the gift of movement. Finally, there is nervous tissue, the intricate wiring designed to carry rapid electrical messages throughout your body. When 2 or more of these distinct tissue types are joined together to perform a highly specific, complex task, they form an organ. Organs are the recognizable landmarks of your internal world: the heart, the stomach, the brain. Consider the stomach. It is an organ because it utilizes epithelial tissue for its lining, smooth muscle tissue for churning food, and nervous tissue to communicate with the brain. Each organ is a specialized factory dedicated to a particular role in the maintenance of your life. Moving higher, we find the organ system level. Even a magnificent organ like the stomach cannot digest a meal alone. It requires the teeth, the esophagus, the intestines, and the liver. When a group of organs works together to accomplish a broad, overarching goal, they form an organ system. There are 11 distinct systems in your body, ranging from the skeletal system that supports you to the respiratory system that provides your oxygen. They are like different departments in a great city, each completely reliant on the others. Finally, at the pinnacle of this organization, we reach the organismal level. This is the sum of all the levels beneath it. All the atoms, molecules, cells, tissues, organs, and systems combine to create the breathtaking singular entity that is you. You are the harmonious whole, a masterpiece of biological engineering, where the sum is infinitely greater than its parts. To truly appreciate the history of this knowledge, we must look back at how long it took humanity to map this internal landscape. For centuries, our understanding was limited to what the eye could see, gross anatomy. In the 2nd century, the physician Galen made immense strides in describing the body's structures, though his work was based largely on animal dissection. It wasn't until the 16th century that Andreas Vesalius published De Humani Corporis Fabrica, providing the first truly accurate and detailed map of human anatomy, often referred to as the fabric of the human body. However, even Vesalius could not see the foundational building blocks of life. It took the 17th century invention of the microscope for Robert Hooke to observe the tiny, box-like chambers he called cells. This discovery fundamentally shifted our understanding of life from the visible to the microscopic, proving that the body is not a solid mass, but a vast assembly of independent living units. The most profound concept in all of physiology, tying all these levels of organization together, is homeostasis. This term, derived from the Greek for staying the same, refers to the body's relentless ability to maintain a stable internal environment despite the changes happening outside. Imagine a perfectly calibrated thermostat in a cozy home during a blizzard. If a door opens and the temperature drops, the thermostat senses the change and triggers the furnace to restore the warmth. Your body operates on millions of these self-correcting feedback loops. If your blood sugar rises, your pancreas releases insulin to lower it. If you become too warm, your skin produces sweat to cool you down. Every atom, cell, and organ system in your body is entirely dedicated to this quiet pursuit of balance. Homeostasis is the silent reason you can survive in a world that is constantly changing. This hierarchical organization and the constant drive for homeostasis are not just abstract scientific principles. They are the governing laws of your existence in this very moment. As you lie here, your breathing has naturally slowed. Your heart is beating with less force because your muscles are at rest. Your brain is shifting its electrical activity, preparing to process the memories of your day. Every level of your organization is responding to this state of rest. At the chemical level, your body is balancing the acidity of your blood. At the cellular level, your 30 trillion cities are performing routine maintenance, repairing proteins, and clearing away cellular debris. At the organ level, your liver is quietly processing nutrients. So you see, your body is not a machine that simply shuts off when you close your eyes. It is a dynamic living garden that uses the deep peace of sleep to tend to its roots and restore its perfect balance. You do not have to consciously direct your cells to repair themselves or remind your heart to beat. The vast, brilliant architecture of your biological organization takes care of everything for you, effortlessly and dependably. You are safe in the care of your own deeply evolved nature. Having now grasped the foundation of how our body is organized from the smallest atom to the complete organism, we are perfectly prepared to appreciate the first line of defense in our biological city. We understand the hierarchy, and now we must look at the boundary that wraps and protects it. Let's hold that thought here, a complete piece of the puzzle. Our next lesson will hand us the adjacent piece, which is the system that acts as your living spacesuit, your primary sensory organ, and your thermal regulator. When we return, we will begin our study of the Integumentary System. Lesson 2, the Integumentary System. In our last session, we laid the magnificent groundwork of our biological organization, observing how invisible atoms gradually build into the complex breathing organism that is you. We marveled at the quiet, relentless pursuit of homeostasis, that perfect internal balance. Tonight, we take the next natural step in our learning journey. We must look at the boundary where your meticulously balanced internal world meets the vast, ever-changing and sometimes harsh external universe. We are going to explore the system that wraps, protects, and defines you. We are studying the Integumentary System. Think of this not merely as a surface, but as a living, breathing spacesuit, a dynamic frontier that continuously negotiates your relationship with the world around you. As we explore this together, we will discover that what seems like a simple, silent wrapping is actually a bustling, highly responsive landscape of miraculous complexity. The word integument comes from a Latin root meaning to cover. The integumentary system is primarily composed of your skin, alongside its specialized accessory structures, your hair, your nails, and an array of microscopic glands. It is, quite literally, your body's largest and heaviest single organ. If we were to gently unfold the skin of an average adult, it would cover an area of about 20 square feet and weigh nearly 10 pounds. It is a monumental anatomical achievement. To understand how this magnificent covering works, we must look at its architecture. The skin is not a single solid sheet of material. Instead, it is constructed of three distinct, beautifully specialized layers, resting one atop the other like the geological strata of the Earth. The outermost layer, the one you can touch and see right now, is called the epidermis. Epi means upon or above. This is a tough, waterproof shield facing the outside world. What is truly fascinating about the epidermis is that it contains no blood vessels at all. It relies entirely on the layer beneath it for nourishment. The vast majority of the cells in the epidermis are called keratinocytes, named because they manufacture a tough, fibrous protein called keratin. The life of a keratinocyte is a remarkable journey. These cells are born deep at the very bottom of the epidermis, in a region called the basal layer. Here, they are plump, healthy, and rapidly dividing. As new cells are born beneath them, the older cells are slowly, inevitably pushed upward towards the surface. As they migrate higher, moving further away from their blood supply, they begin to change. They flatten out, they stop dividing, and they pack themselves entirely full of that tough keratin protein until, eventually, they naturally expire. By the time they reach the very top layer, the stratum corneum, they are perfectly flat, interlocking, dead cells that form an impenetrable biological armor. Every time you wash your hands, or even simply move against your soft bed sheets, you are shedding thousands of these microscopic, exhausted cells, making room for the new ones rising from below. You are, quite literally, regenerating your outer armor every 4 to 6 weeks. Beneath the epidermis lies the dermis. If the epidermis is the tough outer armor, the dermis is the bustling, thick industrial zone. This is a robust layer of connective tissue, incredibly rich in two vital proteins: collagen, which gives your skin its incredible strength and resistance to tearing, and elastin, which gives it the beautiful ability to stretch and snap back into place. When you gently pinch the back of your hand and watch the skin return to its smooth shape, you are witnessing your elastin fibers at work. The dermis is deeply woven with a vast network of blood vessels, supplying the nutrients that seep up into the epidermis. It is also here that we find the intricate networks of nerve endings, the deep roots of your hair follicles, and the coiled factories of your sweat and oil glands. The dermis is where the skin truly comes alive with sensation and activity. Deepest of all, anchoring the skin to the underlying muscles and bones, is the hypodermis, and also known as the subcutaneous layer. Hypo means below. This layer is primarily composed of adipose tissue, which is the scientific term for fat. Think of the hypodermis as a soft, comforting blanket and a shock absorber. It cushions your internal organs from physical impacts and provides a vital layer of thermal insulation, keeping the precious heat generated by your muscles and liver securely trapped inside your body. It is also a brilliantly efficient energy reserve, storing calories in the form of fat cells, Waiting patiently for the day, your body might need an extra source of fuel. Now that we understand the three structural layers, let us look closer at the miraculous cellular inhabitants of this landscape. Deep within the lowest level of your epidermis, living right alongside those newly born keratinocytes, is a scattering of specialized star-shaped cells called melanocytes. These cells have a very specific, vital job. They manufacture a complex dark pigment called melanin. Melanin is the primary determinant of human skin color, but its purpose goes far beyond appearance. Think of melanin as a microscopic parasol. When your skin is exposed to the ultraviolet radiation of the sun, which has the potential to damage the precious DNA residing inside your cells, your melanocytes spring into action. They produce tiny packages of melanin and hand them over to the surrounding keratinocytes. The keratinocytes then elegantly arrange this dark pigment directly over their own nuclei, creating a protective chemical umbrella that absorbs and scatters the harmful UV rays before they can reach the delicate genetic code within. From an evolutionary standpoint, this is a breathtaking adaptation. As early humans migrated across the globe, populations living nearer to the equator, where the sun's rays are most intense, naturally evolved to produce larger amounts of melanin, creating deeply pigmented skin for maximum protection. Populations that migrated to far northern or southern latitudes, where sunlight is scarce and weak, evolved to produce less melanin. This allowed the lighter skin to absorb what little sunlight there was, a process absolutely necessary for the skin to manufacture vitamin D, a nutrient vital for the health of our bones. It is a perfect environmental balancing act written directly into our biology. Let us descend back into the dermis to look at the specialized structures that reside there. Consider your hair. A strand of hair, again, much like the surface of your skin, is composed entirely of tightly packed, dead, keratinized cells. But the root of that hair, buried deep in the dermis, is very much alive. Attached to almost every single hair follicle on your body is a microscopic ribbon of smooth muscle called the erector pili. When you are frightened, or when a sudden chill washes over you, your nervous system sends a rapid signal to these tiny muscles, causing them to suddenly contract. This pulls the hair follicle perfectly upright, creating the tiny bumps on your skin we lovingly call goosebumps. In our ancient fur-covered ancestors, this action would trap a thick layer of warm air against the skin, or make the animal look larger to a predator. Today, on our relatively hairless bodies, it is a quiet, echoing whisper from our evolutionary past. Alongside these hair follicles, we find the sebaceous glands. These are microscopic, hard-working factories that secrete a rich, oily substance called sebum. Sebum travels up the hair shaft and spreads across the surface of your epidermis. This oil is essential. It naturally lubricates the dead cells of your outer skin, keeping them soft and pliable so they do not crack. Furthermore, sebum is slightly acidic. As it mixes with the salty water from your sweat glands, it creates an invisible chemical shield across your entire body known as the acid mantle. This slightly acidic environment is deeply inhospitable to harmful bacteria and microscopic invaders, acting as a silent, invisible moat protecting the castle of your body. So you see, this isn't just a theory in a book. It is the principle that explains so much of your daily experience, especially in the quiet moments of rest. The integumentary system is your primary sensory organ. Woven throughout the dermis are thousands of highly specialized nerve endings. Some, called Meissner's corpuscles, are designed to detect the lightest, most gentle touch, like the brush of a feather or the soft weave of your pillowcase. Deeper down are the Pacinian corpuscles, heavy-duty sensors that register deep pressure and vibration. There are separate, distinct sensors just to tell your brain if something is hot, and entirely different ones to tell you if something is cold. The skin is a vast, sophisticated biological antenna, constantly translating the physical universe into the electrical language of your nervous system. Furthermore, your skin is the master regulator of your body temperature, a crucial component of the homeostasis we discussed in our first lesson. As you lie here preparing for deep sleep, your body is engaged in a subtle thermal shift. To achieve restorative sleep, your core body temperature must drop slightly. To accomplish this, the tiny blood vessels in your dermis quietly dilate, expanding to allow more warm blood from your core to flow near the surface of the skin. This allows the excess heat to radiate away from your body into the cool air of the room. It is a gentle, natural cooling system. If you become too warm under your blankets, your eccrine sweat glands will pull water and trace salts from your bloodstream and push them to the surface. As that microscopic layer of water evaporates, it carries the heat away with it, leaving you perfectly balanced. Your skin is currently working in the background, continuously monitoring the temperature, maintaining the acid mantle against invaders, and regenerating its lower layers so that tomorrow you will wake up with a renewed, perfect boundary. It is a loyal, quiet guardian that never requires your conscious attention. We have now deeply understood the beautiful dynamic wrapping that holds us securely together. We have admired the waterproof shield, the sensory antennas, and the thermal regulators that make up our biological spacesuit. But a spacesuit, no matter how perfectly engineered, is ultimately soft and pliable. It has no shape of its own. It requires a firm, underlying structure to give it form, to hold it upright against the immense, constant pull of gravity. Having now grasped the protective outer structure, we are perfectly prepared to appreciate the rigid, enduring framework that lies silently beneath it. So, let's hold that thought here, a complete piece of the puzzle. Our next lesson will hand us the adjacent piece, guiding us deeper past the hypodermis, as we begin our study of the skeletal system. Let your awareness drift from the soft surface of your skin down into the deep, quiet strength of your own bones. Lesson 3. The Integumentary System. In our last session, we laid the magnificent groundwork of our biological organization, observing how invisible atoms gradually build into the complex breathing organism that is you. We marveled at the quiet, relentless pursuit of homeostasis, that perfect internal balance. Tonight we take the next natural step in our learning journey. We must look at the boundary where your meticulously balanced internal world meets the vast, ever-changing, and sometimes harsh external universe. We are going to explore the system that wraps, protects, and defines you. We are studying the Integumentary System. Think of this not merely as a surface, but as a living, breathing spacesuit, a dynamic frontier that continuously negotiates your relationship with the world around you. As we explore this together, we will discover that what seems like a simple, silent wrapping is actually a bustling, highly responsive landscape of miraculous complexity. The word integument comes from a Latin root, meaning to cover. The integumentary system is primarily composed of your skin, alongside its specialized accessory structures, your hair, your nails, and an array of microscopic glands. It is, quite literally, your body's largest and heaviest single organ. If we were to gently unfold the skin of an average adult, it would cover an area of about 20 square feet and weigh nearly 10 pounds. It is a monumental anatomical achievement. To understand how this magnificent covering works, we must look at its architecture. The skin is not a single solid sheet of material. Instead, it is constructed of 3 distinct, beautifully specialized layers, resting one atop the other like the geological strata of the Earth. The outermost layer, the one you can touch and see right now, is called the epidermis. Epi means upon or above. This is a tough, waterproof shield facing the outside world. What is truly fascinating about the epidermis is that it contains no blood vessels at all. It relies entirely on the layer beneath it for nourishment. The vast majority of the cells in the epidermis are called keratinocytes, named because they manufacture a tough, fibrous protein called keratin. The life of a keratinocyte is a remarkable journey. These cells are born deep at the very bottom of the epidermis, in a region called the basal layer. Here they are plump, healthy, and rapidly dividing. As new cells are born beneath them, the older cells are slowly and inevitably pushed upward toward the surface. As they migrate higher, moving further away from their blood supply, they begin to change. They flatten out, they stop dividing, and they pack themselves entirely full of that tough keratin protein until, eventually, they naturally expire. By the time they reach the very top layer, the stratum corneum, they are perfectly flat, interlocking, dead cells that form an impenetrable biological armor. Every time you wash your hands, or even simply move against your soft bed sheets, you are shedding thousands of these microscopic, exhausted cells, making room for the new ones rising from below. You are, quite literally, regenerating your outer armor every 4 to 6 weeks. Beneath the epidermis lies the dermis. If the epidermis is the tough outer armor, the dermis is the bustling, thick industrial zone. This is a robust layer of connective tissue, incredibly rich in 2 vital proteins: collagen, which gives your skin its incredible strength and resistance to tearing, and elastin, which gives it the beautiful ability to stretch and snap back into place. When you gently pinch the back of your hand and watch the skin return to its smooth shape, you are witnessing your elastin fibers at work. The dermis is deeply woven with a vast network of blood vessels, supplying the nutrients that seep up into the epidermis. It is also here that we find the intricate networks of nerve endings, the deep roots of your hair follicles, and the coiled factories of your sweat and oil glands. The dermis is where the skin truly comes alive with sensation and activity. Deepest of all, anchoring the skin to the underlying muscles and bones, is the hypodermis, what also known as the subcutaneous layer. Hypo means below. This layer is primarily composed of adipose tissue, which is the scientific term for fat. Think of the hypodermis as a soft, comforting blanket and a shock absorber. It cushions your internal organs from physical impacts and provides a vital layer of thermal insulation, keeping the precious heat generated by your muscles and liver securely trapped inside your body. It is also a brilliantly efficient energy reserve, storing calories in the form of fat cells, waiting patiently for the day your body might need an extra source of fuel. Now that we understand the three structural layers, let us look closer at the miraculous cellular inhabitants of this landscape. Deep within the lowest level of your epidermis, living right alongside those newly born keratinocytes, is a scattering of specialized star-shaped cells called melanocytes. These cells have a very specific vital job. They manufacture a complex dark pigment called melanin. Melanin is the primary determinant of human skin color, but its purpose goes far beyond appearance. Think of melanin as a microscopic parasol. When your skin is exposed to the ultraviolet radiation of the sun, which has the potential to damage the precious DNA residing inside your cells, your melanocytes spring into action. They produce tiny packages of melanin and hand them over to the surrounding keratinocytes. The keratinocytes then elegantly arrange this dark pigment directly over their own nuclei, creating a protective chemical umbrella that absorbs and scatters the harmful UV rays before they can reach the delicate genetic code within. From an evolutionary standpoint, this is a breathtaking adaptation. As early humans migrated across the globe, populations living nearer to the equator, where the sun's rays are most intense, naturally evolved to produce larger amounts of melanin, creating deeply pigmented skin for maximum protection. Populations that migrated to far northern or southern latitudes, where sunlight is scarce and weak, evolved to produce less melanin. This allowed the lighter skin to absorb what little sunlight there was, a process absolutely necessary for the skin to manufacture vitamin D, a nutrient vital for the health of our bones. It is a perfect environmental balancing act written directly into our biology. Let us descend back into the dermis to look at the specialized structures that reside there. Consider your hair. A strand of hair, much like the surface of your skin, is composed entirely of tightly packed, dead, keratinized cells. But the root of that hair, buried deep in the dermis, is very much alive. Attached to almost every single hair follicle on your body is a microscopic ribbon of smooth muscle called the erector pili. When you are frightened, or when a sudden chill washes over you, your nervous system sends a rapid signal to these tiny muscles, causing them to suddenly contract. This pulls the hair follicle perfectly upright, creating the tiny bumps on your skin we lovingly call goosebumps. In our ancient fur-covered ancestors, this action would trap a thick layer of warm air against the skin, or make the animal look larger to a predator. Today, on our relatively hairless bodies, it is a quiet, echoing whisper from our evolutionary past. Alongside these hair follicles, we find the sebaceous glands. These are microscopic, hard-working factories that secrete a rich, oily substance called sebum. Sebum travels up the hair shaft and spreads across the surface of your epidermis. This oil is essential. It naturally lubricates the dead cells of your outer skin, keeping them soft and pliable so they do not crack. Furthermore, sebum is slightly acidic. As it mixes with the salty water from your sweat glands, it creates an invisible chemical shield across your entire body, known as the acid mantle. This slightly acidic environment is deeply inhospitable to harmful bacteria and microscopic invaders, acting as a silent, invisible moat, protecting the castle of your body. So you see, this isn't just a theory in a book. It is the principle that explains so much of your daily experience, especially in the quiet moments of rest. The integumentary system is your primary sensory organ. Woven throughout the dermis are thousands of highly specialized nerve endings. Some, called Meissner's corpuscles, are designed to detect the lightest, most gentle touch, like the brush of a feather or the soft weave of your pillowcase. Deeper down are the Pacinian corpuscles, heavy-duty sensors that register deep pressure and vibration. There are separate, distinct sensors just to tell your brain if something is hot, and entirely different ones to tell you if something is cold. The skin is a vast, sophisticated biological antenna, constantly translating the physical universe into the electrical language of your nervous system. Furthermore, your skin is the master regulator of your body temperature, a crucial component of the homeostasis we discussed in our first lesson. As you lie here preparing for deep sleep, your body is engaged in a subtle thermal shift. To achieve restorative sleep, your core body temperature must drop slightly. To accomplish this, the tiny blood vessels in your dermis quietly dilate, expanding to allow more warm blood from your core to flow near the surface of the skin. This allows the excess heat to radiate away from your body into the cool air of the room. It is a gentle, natural cooling system. If you become too warm under your blankets, your eccrine sweat glands will pull water and trace salts from your bloodstream and push them to the surface. As that microscopic layer of water evaporates, it carries the heat away with it, leaving you perfectly balanced. Your skin is currently working in the background. It's continuously monitoring the temperature, maintaining the acid mantle against invaders, and regenerating its lower layers, so that tomorrow you will wake up with a renewed, perfect boundary. It is a loyal, quiet guardian that never requires your conscious attention. We have now deeply understood the beautiful, dynamic wrapping that holds us securely together. We have admired the waterproof shield, the sensory antennas, and the thermal regulators that make up our biological spacesuit. But a spacesuit, no matter how perfectly engineered, is ultimately soft and pliable. It has no shape of its own. It requires a firm, underlying structure to give it form, to hold it upright against the immense, constant pull of gravity. Having now grasped the protective outer structure, we are perfectly prepared to appreciate the rigid, enduring framework that lies silently beneath it. So, let's hold that thought here, a complete piece of the puzzle. Our next lesson will hand us the adjacent piece, guiding us deeper past the hypodermis as we begin our study of the skeletal system. Let your awareness drift from the soft surface of your skin down into the deep, quiet strength of your own bones. Lesson 4. The Muscular System. In our previous session together, we explored the magnificent, rigid architecture of the skeletal system. We admired the silent, enduring framework of bone that gives your body its form and safely houses your most delicate internal organs. But an architecture, no matter how beautifully engineered, is ultimately still and static. A skeleton alone cannot reach out to hold a warm cup of tea. It cannot expand the ribs to draw in a breath, and it cannot propel you through the world. Tonight, we take the next vital step in our journey inward. We are going to drape that scaffolding with the engines of life. We are going to explore the tissues that allow you to interact with your environment, the tissues that generate your body heat, and the vital tissues that tirelessly circulate your blood. We are stepping into the study of the muscular system. Think of this system not just as the source of physical strength, but as a vast, beautifully synchronized orchestra of movement and stabilization. As we explore this together, we will discover how millions of microscopic threads pull in perfect harmony to create everything from the most powerful athletic leap to the gentle, rhythmic rising and falling of your chest as you rest here tonight. When you look at the human body, the sheer volume of muscle is astounding. Comprising nearly half of your total body weight, the muscular system is an expansive network of over 600 individual muscles. Every single one of these muscles is constructed from highly specialized biological fabric, designed for one singular, remarkable purpose: the ability to contract. To understand this vast network, anatomists gently divide muscle tissue into three distinct, highly specialized categories. The first category is skeletal muscle. These are the muscles you are most familiar with. They are the ones securely anchored to your bones by thick, sturdy cords of connective tissue called tendons. Skeletal muscles are entirely voluntary. They are under your conscious control. When you decide to turn your head, smile, or gently adjust your position under the blankets, it is your skeletal muscles that obediently carry out the command. Under a microscope, these muscles appear striped or striated, revealing a highly organized internal structure. The second category is smooth muscle. You do not have to think about this kind of muscle, and that is a profound evolutionary gift. Smooth muscle is involuntary, gracefully managing the background operations of your life. It forms the flexible inner linings of your hollow organs. It is wrapped around your stomach and intestines, gently and rhythmically contracting in waves to push nourishment through your digestive tract. It lines the walls of your blood vessels, subtly tightening or relaxing to perfectly regulate your blood pressure. It is called smooth because under a microscope, it lacks the rigid stripes of skeletal muscle, appearing instead as a seamless, flowing sheet of tissue. The third and final category is cardiac muscle, and it is arguably the most extraordinary tissue in the entire body. Found in only one place, the thick middle layer of the heart wall, cardiac muscle is a brilliant hybrid. Like skeletal muscle, it is heavily striated and incredibly strong. Like smooth muscle. Now, it is entirely involuntary. But what makes cardiac muscle truly miraculous is its intrinsic rhythm. The cells of your heart are woven together in such a way that they spontaneously generate their own electrical impulses. They do not need a constant command from the brain to beat. They simply know how to contract together, a tireless, synchronized pulse that began before you were even born and will continue every moment of your life. Now, let us look at how the voluntary muscles attached to your skeleton actually function. The golden rule of the muscular system is wonderfully simple. Muscles can only pull. They can never, ever push. Because they can only pull, skeletal muscles must work in coordinated teams, usually in opposing pairs. We call these antagonistic pairs. Think of the muscles in your upper arm. On the front, you have the biceps. On the back, you have the triceps. If you wish to bend your elbow and bring your hand toward your shoulder, your brain sends a signal to the biceps to contract. As the biceps shortens and pulls the forearm up, the triceps on the back of the arm must perfectly, completely relax and lengthen to allow the movement to happen. If you then wish to straighten your arm back out, the roles reverse. The biceps must relax and the triceps contracts, pulling the arm straight. Every graceful movement you make, from threading a needle to walking down the street, is the result of this magnificent, silent negotiation between pulling and yielding. To truly appreciate the wonder of muscle contraction, we must peel back the outer layers and plunge deep into the microscopic world. We must look at the machinery hidden inside the muscle itself. Imagine taking a single skeletal muscle, like the bicep, and slicing it in half. Inside, you would see that the muscle is not a solid mass. Instead, it is made of bundles within bundles, like a thick, ancient maritime rope. The muscle is composed of bundles called fascicles. Inside each fascicle are hundreds of individual muscle cells, which we call muscle fibers. Because they stretch the entire length of the muscle, these fibers are incredibly long, some of the longest cells in your body. If we zoom in even further, inside a single microscopic muscle fiber, we find it is packed tight with thousands of rod-like structures called myofibrils. And here, at the very edge of biological visibility, we find the true engines of movement. The myofibril is divided into perfectly repeating microscopic segments called sarcomeres. The sarcomere is the fundamental functional unit of a muscle. Inside every single sarcomere are two types of incredibly fine protein threads, or filaments, lying parallel to one another. The thin filaments are made of a protein called actin. The thick filaments are made of a protein called myosin. When a muscle is resting, the actin and myosin filaments overlap slightly, but they are peaceful, simply floating near one another. When your brain sends the command to move, a rush of chemistry floods the sarcomere. Specifically, calcium, released from its storage banks, floods the area. This calcium acts like a key, unlocking binding sites on the thin actin threads. Instantly, tiny structures on the thick myosin threads, which look like the heads of microscopic golf clubs, reach upward and firmly grab onto the actin. Then, fueled by the cellular energy known as ATP, the myosin heads perform a power stroke. They bend, physically pulling the thin actin threads closer to the center of the sarcomere. Millions of these microscopic myosin heads act exactly like a synchronized rowing team pulling their oars through the water. They grab, they pull, they release, they reach back, and they pull again. As the actin threads are pulled toward the center, the entire sarcomere shortens. Because there are tens of thousands of sarcomeres linked end to end along the muscle fiber, and thousands of fibers in the whole muscle, this microscopic sliding action adds up to a macroscopic contraction. Your entire muscle shortens, pulling on the tendon, pulling on the bone, and suddenly your arm bends. This beautiful, complex mechanism is called the sliding filament theory. And the most beautiful part of it all? In order for the muscle to relax, it requires just as much energy as it did to contract. The tiny myosin ores need a fresh molecule of ATP energy simply to let go of the actin and return to their resting position. Relaxation is an active, vital process. So you see, the principles of the muscular system go far beyond lifting heavy objects. This system is deeply intertwined with your survival and your profound comfort. Let us consider something known as muscle tone. Even when you feel completely relaxed, sitting in a chair or standing in a line, your skeletal muscles are never entirely off. Your nervous system is constantly sending a very low-level, alternating baseline of electrical signals to a small percentage of your muscle fibers. This keeps the muscles slightly firm, a state we call resting muscle tone. This continuous quiet effort is what holds your jaw closed, keeps your head upright, and maintains your posture against the relentless pull of gravity without you ever having to think about it. It stabilizes your joints and keeps your structural temple beautifully aligned. It is only when you transition into the deepest, most restorative stages of sleep, specifically rapid eye movement or REM sleep, that the brain finally halts these signals entirely. During this deep sleep, your skeletal muscles experience a profound healthy paralysis, a complete release of tension that allows the physical body to heal while the mind dreams safely. Furthermore, your muscular system is your body's primary furnace. The continuous microscopic rowing of those myosin heads requires immense amounts of cellular energy. And just like a car engine burning fuel, whenever your muscles burn ATP energy, they release a byproduct, pure, radiant heat. Nearly 85% of the heat that keeps your body at a perfectly balanced, life-sustaining temperature is generated by the routine contractions of your skeletal muscles. When you step out into the cold winter air and your internal temperature begins to drop, your brain recognizes the threat to your homeostasis. It immediately commands your skeletal muscles to rapidly, involuntarily contract and relax. We call this shivering. It is simply your body turning the furnaces up to their maximum setting, using the friction of the sliding filament theory to literally warm your blood and save your life. Right now, as you lie here, your body is a masterclass in muscular economy. Your skeletal muscles have surrendered their tone, sinking heavily and comfortably into the mattress. Your smooth muscles are quietly, rhythmically digesting and managing your internal pressures. And your beautiful cardiac muscle continues its steady, lifelong rowing, pulling you safely through the night. We have now established the magnificent pulling engines that drape our skeletal framework. We understand the elegant teamwork of the opposing muscles, the incredible microscopic sliding filaments that generate force, and the heat that radiates from their quiet, continuous work. But an engine, no matter how perfectly crafted, is entirely useless without a driver. A rowing team can have the strongest arms in the world, but without a coxswain shouting the rhythm and directing the course, the boat will not move forward. The muscles are blind. They only contract when they are told to do so. Having now grasped the machinery of movement, we are perfectly prepared to discover the grand command center that governs it all. So let us leave the realm of physical force and smoothly transition into the realm of profound electrical communication. When our journey resumes, we will follow the spark of command as we begin our quiet, awe-inspiring study of the nervous system. Let your body remain heavy and still as your awareness prepares to drift toward the gentle electricity of the mind. Lesson 5. The nervous system. In our previous session together, we explored the magnificent engines of the muscular system. We marveled at the sliding filaments and the tireless rowing of microscopic fibers that generate our movement and our warmth. But an engine, no matter how brilliantly engineered or powerfully built, is entirely without purpose if it lacks a driver. A muscle cannot decide to contract on its own. It rests in darkness, waiting in perfect stillness for a command. Tonight we take a wondrous step into the light of that command. We are going to explore the great conductor of your bodily orchestra, the delicate and breathtakingly complex network that gives you thought, sensation, memory, and control. We are entering the domain of the master controller, the nervous system. Think of this system as the most sophisticated but high-speed communication network in the known universe. As we wander through its pathways together, we will discover how a simple touch, a fleeting thought, or the rhythm of your quiet breathing is entirely governed by a beautiful, silent storm of electricity and chemistry taking place right now, deep within you. To understand this vast, intricate web, anatomists conceptually divide the nervous system into two distinct, deeply connected branches. The first branch is the central nervous system, often referred to simply as the CNS. This is your body's ultimate command center and primary data processing facility. It consists of two seamlessly connected structures: the brain, securely resting within the vault of your skull, and the spinal cord, a thick, delicate cable of tissue running down the protective tunnel of your vertebrae. And if the nervous system were a grand ancient empire, the central nervous system would be the capital city and the emperor's palace, where all information is gathered and all grand decisions are made. The second branch is the peripheral nervous system, or the PNS. Peripheral refers to the outer edges or the boundaries. This system consists of the vast, sprawling network of nerves that branch out from the brain and the spinal cord, reaching into every single isolated corner of your body. They weave through your muscles, wrap around your organs, and terminate just beneath the surface of your skin. If the central nervous system is the capital city, the peripheral nervous system is the intricate system of highways, cobblestone roads, and footpaths carrying messengers back and forth from the furthest frontier towns of your fingertips and toes. But what exactly are these pathways made of? To answer this, we must look at the fundamental, miraculous building block of the nervous system, the neuron. A neuron is a highly specialized, distinctly shaped cell designed for one exquisite purpose: the rapid transmission of information. While most cells in your body are somewhat round or box-like, a neuron looks more like an ancient, magnificent tree that has been gently uprooted. At the center of the neuron is the cell body, or the soma. This is the main life support center, housing the nucleus and the vital machinery that keeps the cell alive. Branching outward from the cell body is a dense, beautifully intricate canopy of delicate fibers called dendrites. The word dendrite comes from the Greek word for tree. These branches act as the neuron's listening antennas. They reach out into the surrounding space, constantly waiting to receive messages from other neurons. Extending from the other side of the cell body is a single, remarkably long, slender cable called the axon. If the dendrites are the listening antennas, the axon is the broadcasting wire. While dendrites are microscopic, a single axon can be astoundingly long. The axon of a motor neuron controlling your toe begins in your lower spine and travels unbroken all the way down your leg. A single, continuous, microscopic wire that can be over 3 feet in length. To ensure that the delicate electrical messages traveling down this long axon do not leak out or lose their strength, many axons are wrapped in a brilliant biological insulation called the myelin sheath. Imagine the rubber coating wrapped around a copper electrical wire in your home. Myelin serves exactly the same purpose. It is a soft, fatty, white substance that not only protects the axon, but dramatically accelerates the speed at which the electrical signal can travel. Because of this beautiful insulation, a thought can race from your spinal cord to your foot in a fraction of a second. To coordinate all the magnificent functions of your life, your body utilizes 3 specific types of these neurons. First, there are sensory neurons. These are the inward-bound messengers. They gather information from the outside world, the softness of your blanket, the temperature of the room, the sound of my voice, and carry those sensations from the peripheral nervous system inward to the brain. Second, there are motor neurons. These are the outward-bound commanders. They carry the brain's decisions outward to the muscles and glands, telling the bicep to contract or the heart to beat a little slower. And finally, existing entirely within the brain and spinal cord, we have the interneurons. These form the vast, complex processing middleman. They receive the sensory input, interpret it, cross-reference it with your memories and current state, and decide upon the perfect motor response. Billions upon billions of interneurons talking only to one another is the biological foundation of what we experience as consciousness, dreaming, and thought. Now that we understand the beautiful, tree-like structure of the neuron, we must ask a profoundly important question. How does the message actually travel? When a neuron is perfectly at rest, it is sitting in a state of quiet, polarized tension. Through the tireless work of tiny microscopic pumps in its membrane, the neuron actively pushes positively charged sodium ions out of the cell, while keeping positively charged potassium ions inside. This creates a tiny, measurable electrical difference between the inside and the outside of the cell, like a microscopic battery holding a charge, waiting to be used. When a dendrite receives a strong enough message from a neighbor, it opens tiny biological gates. Suddenly, all those waiting sodium ions rush inside the cell. This sudden thrilling rush of electrical charge cascades down the cell body and leaps into the axon. We call this moving wave of electricity and action potential. It is a spark of pure biological lightning. It races down the length of the axon, skipping gracefully from one exposed node of the myelin sheath to the next, a process so perfectly efficient it borders on the poetic. But what happens when this electrical lightning bolt reaches the very end of the axon? This brings us to one of the most remarkable, deeply philosophical intersections in all of human anatomy. Neurons do not actually touch one another. Between the broadcasting tip of one axon and the listening dendrite of the next neuron lies an incredibly tiny, fluid-filled chasm. This microscopic void is called the synaptic cleft, or simply the synapse. An electrical spark cannot jump across this watery gap. So, a breathtaking transformation must occur. When the electrical action potential reaches the very end of the axon, it causes tiny, spherical storage bubbles to fuse with the cell membrane. These bubbles burst open, spilling their contents into the gap. The contents are not electrical. They are purely chemical. We call these extraordinary molecules neurotransmitters. Think of this transition like a vital, urgent message. The electricity is the telephone wire rapidly carrying the signal across the country. But when the signal reaches the end of the line, the telephone must ring, and someone must speak the words across the room. The neurotransmitters are the spoken words. These chemical messengers drift gracefully across the microscopic ocean of the synapse. When they reach the other side, they find specific, perfectly shaped receptors on the dendrites of the next neuron. It is a lock and key mechanism of flawless design. If a serotonin molecule perfectly fits into a serotonin receptor, it turns the key. If enough keys are turned, the next neuron fires its own electrical spark, and the message continues its journey. There are dozens of different neurotransmitters quietly doing their work within you right now. Serotonin is gently regulating your mood and preparing your brain for sleep. Dopamine carries the signals of satisfaction and smooth, coordinated movement. GABA, the great calming neurotransmitter, is currently washing over your nervous system, turning down the volume of your anxious thoughts and telling your busy brain to finally rest. And we must not forget the unsung heroes of this electrical landscape, the glial cells. For every single neuron in your brain, there are up to 10 glial cells. Glia comes from the Greek word for glue. For decades, scientists thought these cells merely held the neurons in place. We now know they are the tireless caretakers of the nervous system. They manufacture the myelin sheath. They deliver nutrients directly from the bloodstream. They clean up cellular waste. And they gently bathe the neurons in a perfect, soothing chemical environment. The neurons may be the brilliant, high-maintenance stars of the show, but the glial cells are the dedicated crew that makes the performance entirely possible. This grand, shifting architecture of electricity and chemistry is the very principle that dictates your experience of reality. But to truly appreciate its relevance to this exact moment, we must look closely at a specific subdivision of your peripheral nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. As the word suggests, the autonomic nervous system governs your automatic, involuntary functions. It is the autopilot managing your heart rate, your digestion, and your breathing. But this autopilot has two beautifully opposing modes. The first mode is the sympathetic nervous system. You can think of this as the body's accelerator pedal. This is the network responsible for your fight or flight response. When you are facing a deadline, navigating heavy traffic, or startled by a loud noise, your sympathetic nervous system instantly takes over. It accelerates your heart, dilates your pupils to let in more light, and diverts blood away from your stomach and directly into your skeletal muscles. It prepares you for immediate, urgent action. Most of us spend far too much of our modern day locked in this state of subtle and continuous acceleration. But the second mode is where we are going tonight. It is called the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the body's gentle, steady brake pedal. It governs the state beautifully known as rest and digest. As you lie here, listening to the slow cadence of my voice, focusing on the heavy comfort of your limbs, you are actively, deliberately shifting your internal master switch. You are telling your brain to disengage the sympathetic accelerator and engage the parasympathetic brakes. Right now, your parasympathetic nerves are gently whispering to your heart, asking the cardiac muscle to space its beats a little further apart. They are signaling the smooth muscles in your lungs to relax, allowing your breath to become deeper and slower. They are commanding the blood vessels in your digestive tract to open wide, routing energy back to the quiet internal work of nourishment and healing. Your brain waves are physically altering their frequency. The rapid, jagged beta waves of daytime thinking are smoothing out into the gentle, rolling alpha and theta waves of deep relaxation. The chemical balance in your synapses is shifting from the sharp alertness of adrenaline to the deep, comforting embrace of melatonin and GABA. Your nervous system is expertly playing a chemical lullaby, lowering the drawbridge to sleep. We have now explored the brilliant electrical command center. We have seen the neurons branching like ancient trees, the lightning-fast action potentials, and the beautiful chemical handshakes occurring in the microscopic spaces between them. But a supercomputer of this magnitude requires an astonishing amount of energy. Though your brain makes up only about 2% of your body weight, it consumes fully 20% of your body's oxygen and energy at any given moment. The nervous system may be the master commander, but it is utterly dependent on a relentless, incredibly efficient supply chain to keep its fires burning. Having now grasped how the body communicates its desires, we are perfectly prepared to understand how it delivers its vital supplies. Let us leave the flashing electrical storms of the mind and smoothly travel down to the warm, rhythmic rivers of life. When our journey resumes, we will follow the pulsing pathways of supply. As we begin our quiet, flowing study of the cardiovascular system, let the calm, steady rhythm in your chest guide your awareness as we prepare to continue. Lesson 6. The cardiovascular system. In our previous session together, we explored the brilliant flashing electrical storms of the nervous system. We mapped the vast command center that governs your thoughts, your movements, and your quietest moments of rest. But a supercomputer of that magnitude, along with every contracting muscle and every silently renewing bone cell, requires a staggering, continuous supply of energy and oxygen. The command center cannot survive without an immaculate supply chain. Tonight, we take the next essential step in our journey inward. We are going to leave the lightning-fast pathways of the nerves and step onto the banks of the warm, rhythmic rivers of life flowing deep within you. We are going to explore the magnificent, tireless transport network that sustains your very existence. We are entering the quiet, pulsing world of the cardiovascular system. Think of this system as the ultimate, perfectly engineered delivery and waste removal service, an unbroken, closed loop of winding waterways. As we float along its currents together, we will discover how a humble, continuously beating muscle effortlessly sustains the life of your 30 trillion cellular citizens, asking for absolutely nothing in return. To truly understand this elegant network, we must first look at its name. Cardio is derived from the ancient Greek word for heart, and vascular refers to the intricate system of vessels or tubes. Together, they form a vast, unbroken, circulatory loop completely sealed off from the outside world. At the very center of this system, resting faithfully just behind your breastbone and nestled safely between your lungs, is the heart. It is surprisingly modest in size, roughly the dimensions of your own softly clenched fist, and weighs less than a pound. Yet, this small, specialized organ is a marvel of biological engineering. The heart is essentially a hollow muscle, divided into 4 distinct rooms, or chambers. The top 2 chambers are the atria, a word meaning entrance halls. These are the gentle receiving rooms, designed to patiently collect the blood as it returns from its long journey through the body. Below them are the 2 ventricles. These are the powerful, thick-walled pumping chambers, designed to squeeze with immense force to send the blood rushing back out into the vast, winding network of your vessels. Leading away from and returning to these 4 chambers are the three magnificent types of blood vessels that weave through every inch of your anatomy. First, we have the arteries. You can think of the arteries as the deep, high-pressure rushing rivers of your circulatory system. With only one exception, arteries carry bright red, oxygen-rich blood directly away from the heart. Because they must withstand the immense, surging pressure of the heart's forceful pumping, their walls are incredibly thick, woven with layers of tough, connective tissue and smooth, elastic muscle. They expand slightly with every single heartbeat, perfectly absorbing the shock and smoothing out the flow of the river. As the arteries travel further away from the heart, they branch out, becoming smaller and smaller, until they transition into the second type of vessel, the capillaries. Capillaries are the invisible, microscopic destination of the entire system. They are so impossibly narrow that your red blood cells must actually fold themselves slightly and line up single file just to squeeze through. The walls of a capillary are only one single cell thick. This absolute thinness is not a flaw. It is a profound design feature. It is here, through this gossamer thin membrane, that the true miracle of the cardiovascular system occurs. Oxygen and vital nutrients gently slip out of the blood and into the waiting tissues, while carbon dioxide and cellular waste quietly slip back into the bloodstream to be carried away. Once the blood has completed its delivery and gathered the waste, it must return home. The capillaries slowly merge together, widening out to form the third type of vessel, the veins. Veins are the quiet, low-pressure, returning rivers, carrying oxygen-depleted blood back to the heart. Because the pressure in the veins is so incredibly low, they face a monumental challenge. They must often fight the force of gravity to pull the blood up from your legs and back to your chest. To accomplish this, the veins are equipped with ingenious, microscopic, one-way valves. As your skeletal muscles naturally contract throughout the day, they gently squeeze the veins, pushing the blood upward. The little valves instantly snap shut behind the flowing blood, ensuring it never, ever flows backward. It is a slow, methodical, deeply peaceful return journey. To fully appreciate the majesty of this system, we must look at the specific figure-8 path the blood travels. For centuries, brilliant physicians like Galen believed that the blood simply ebbed and flowed through the body like the tide on a beach, consumed by the tissues and constantly recreated by the liver. It was not until the early 1600s that a brilliant English physician named William Harvey meticulously studied the heart and the valves in the veins, proving to the world that the blood moves in a continuous, unbroken, circular loop. This loop is actually two distinct circuits beautifully woven together. Imagine a single weary red blood cell returning from a long journey down to your farthest toe. It is carrying cellular waste and is completely depleted of oxygen. It flows peacefully up through the veins of your leg, into your abdomen, and finally empties into the gentle receiving room of the right atrium. From here, as it drops down into the right ventricle. The right ventricle has a very specific, delicate job: pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary means lungs. With a soft, synchronized squeeze, the right side of the heart pushes this dark, weary blood on a very short, gentle trip next door to the lungs. There, in the microscopic nets of the capillaries surrounding the air sacs, the blood exhales its carbon dioxide and breathes in a fresh, vibrant payload of oxygen, turning instantly bright, vivid crimson. This revitalized oxygen-rich blood now flows back into the left atrium, the entrance hall for the second circuit. It drops down into the left ventricle, which is the most heavily muscled, powerful chamber of the entire heart. The left ventricle is responsible for systemic circulation. With a massive, twisting, powerful contraction, it hurls the bright red blood out through the aorta, the largest artery in your body, sending it rushing at an incredible speed to nourish your brain, your organs, your bones, and your skin. Between these chambers sit the heart valves, delicate flaps of tissue that ensure the blood only ever moves forward. When you listen to a heartbeat with a stethoscope, you are not actually hearing the muscle itself contracting. You are hearing the elegant, synchronized snapping shut of these anatomical doors. The classic lub-dub sound is simply the gentle rhythmic closing of the valves, sealing the chambers perfectly tight to prevent even a single drop of backflow. But what exactly is this remarkable fluid coursing through the vessels? Blood is a deeply complex living tissue. More than half of your blood is a pale yellow, watery fluid called plasma, which silently carries your hormones, dissolved proteins, and nutrients. Floating within this river are the leukocytes, your white blood cells, acting as an ever-vigilant floating immune system patrolling for invaders. There are the thrombocytes, or platelets, tiny fragments waiting to instantly form a seal and heal any microscopic tear in the vessel walls. And finally, there are the erythrocytes, the red blood cells. These are the tireless cargo ships of the river. A single drop of blood contains millions of them. They are so utterly dedicated to carrying oxygen that as they mature in your bone marrow, they actually eject their own nucleus to make more room for a miraculous, iron-rich protein called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin acts like a chemical magnet, imperfectly grabbing onto oxygen in the lungs and graciously releasing it exactly where it is needed in the tissues. A single red blood cell will make the complete figure-8 journey through the heart, to the lungs, back to the heart, out to the body, and back again in roughly 60 seconds. It will do this continuously for about 120 days before it is gently retired by your spleen and liver, its valuable iron carefully recycled to build the next generation of cargo ships. So you see, this rhythmic flowing system is not just an impressive piece of biological plumbing. It is the very foundation of your warmth, your energy, and your deep, restorative rest. Every single function we have discussed tonight, the contraction of the muscles, the firing of the nerves, the rebuilding of the bones, is entirely dictated by the flawless operation of the cardiovascular system. As you lie here, settling deeper into the mattress, your autonomic nervous system, the gentle braking system we learned about in our last lesson, is in constant quiet dialogue with your heart. Because you are perfectly still, your muscles no longer require the massive volumes of oxygen they needed when you were awake and moving. Recognizing this deep state of safety and rest, your brain sends a soft chemical whisper down the vagus nerve directly to the heart's natural pacemaker. Obediently, the heart beautifully adjusts its pace. A resting heart might beat somewhere between 60 and 80 times a minute. But as you drift towards sleep, it slows even further. The pressure inside your arteries drops, creating a profound, systemic relaxation. Blood flow is gently diverted away from the large skeletal muscles of your arms and legs and smoothly redirected inward prioritizing the deep, quiet organs of digestion, filtration, and cellular repair. Over the course of an average lifetime, this humble fist-sized muscle will beat more than 2.5 billion times. It will quietly pump enough blood to fill several supertankers, and it will do so without ever asking for a single moment of rest. It pauses only for a fraction of a second between beats, finding its peace in the incredibly brief silence between the lub and the dub. The gentle throbbing you might feel if you rest your hand over your heart, or the faint rhythmic pulse you can sense in your neck or your wrist, is the physical echo of the left ventricle doing its vital work. It is the sound of your own life, a steady, unbroken drumbeat of deeply evolved survival, endlessly working to keep your internal universe perfectly balanced and completely nourished. We have now mapped the winding, warm rivers of the body. We understand the unyielding strength of the four-chambered heart, the vast branching networks of the arteries and veins, and the microscopic, silent exchanges occurring in the capillary beds. We have followed the red blood cell as it travels the looping circuit, carrying its precious cargo of life. But as we learned, the right side of the heart sends the weary, dark blood on a crucial journey to the lungs to be revitalized. The cardiovascular system is a perfect delivery network, but it cannot manufacture the oxygen it carries. It must interface with the atmosphere around you. Having now grasped how the blood circulates its supplies, we are perfectly prepared to understand where the most vital of those supplies comes from. Let us hold on to the rhythm of the flowing blood and seamlessly trace its path into the chest. When our journey resumes, we will follow the gentle expanding mechanics of the breath as we begin our quiet, airy study of the respiratory system. Let the slow, effortless rise and fall of your chest anchor your awareness as we prepare to continue. Lesson 7, the respiratory system. In our last session together, we traced the winding, warm rivers of the cardiovascular system. We followed a single, weary red blood cell as it returned from its long journey through your body, completely depleted of oxygen and carrying the heavy burden of cellular waste. We watched as the right side of the heart gently pushed this dark blood towards the lungs, anticipating a vital transformation. Tonight, we take the next wondrous step in our journey, moving seamlessly from the flowing blood to the invisible, life-giving ocean of air that surrounds us. We are going to explore the graceful, expanding mechanics of the breath. We are entering the airy, rhythmic domain of the respiratory system. Think of this system not simply as a pair of bellows, but as an exquisitely delicate, profoundly vast meeting place. It is the quiet frontier where the internal rivers of your body come to embrace the atmosphere of the earth. As we explore this together, we will discover the elegant physics and the microscopic miracles that allow you to draw the outside world deep into your chest, transforming it into the very energy that sustains your peaceful rest tonight. To understand the majesty of the respiratory system, we must follow the journey of a single, gentle breath. The primary function of this system is gas exchange, the vital process of drawing fresh, vibrant oxygen into the body and expelling the carbon dioxide that your cells naturally produce as they work. This journey begins at the prominent gateway of your face, your nose. While it is entirely possible to breathe through your mouth, Your nasal cavity is a highly specialized biological climate control center. As air is drawn into your nostrils, it passes over complex, scroll-like bones called the nasal conchae, or turbinates. These structures force the air to swirl and tumble over a rich, warm layer of mucous membranes. In the fraction of a second it takes for a breath to pass through this space, the cold, dry air of the outside world is instantly warmed to your exact body temperature and humidified to near 100% moisture. Simultaneously, tiny hairs in the sticky surface capture microscopic dust and airborne particles, beautifully purifying the breath before it goes any deeper. From the nasal cavity, the warmed, clean air flows smoothly down the back of your throat, an area anatomists call the pharynx. At the bottom of the pharynx, the pathway divides. One road leads to the stomach, and the other leads to the lungs. Guarding this crucial intersection is a brilliant, leaf-shaped flap of elastic cartilage known as the epiglottis. When you swallow water or food, the epiglottis automatically folds downward, like a protective trapdoor, sealing off your airway so nourishment goes exactly where it belongs. But right now, as you lie quietly breathing, the epiglottis stands proudly open, allowing the air to pass freely into the larynx, your voice box, and down into the trachea. The trachea, often called the windpipe, is a sturdy, flexible tube about 4 inches long. If you gently touch the front of your neck, you can feel its rigid structure. It is held permanently open by a series of C-shaped rings of tough cartilage, ensuring that the vacuum of your breath never causes the pipe to collapse inward. As the trachea descends into the warmth of your chest, it bifurcates. It splits into 2 large branches called the primary bronchi. One branch gently sweeps into the right lung, and the other into the left. Once inside the lungs, the architecture undergoes a breathtaking transformation. The tubes divide and branch out again and again, becoming smaller and more numerous with every division. They become secondary bronchi, then tertiary bronchi, and eventually they become microscopic tubes called bronchioles. If you were to take the lungs and turn them upside down, they would look exactly like a magnificent dense oak tree in the height of summer. This is why anatomists lovingly refer to this structure as the respiratory tree. At the very ends of the smallest, most delicate branches of this tree, the journey of the air finally comes to a halt in millions of microscopic, incredibly fragile air sacs called alveoli. Think of the alveoli like tightly packed clusters of tiny, hollow grapes. There are hundreds of millions of them inside your chest. If you were to take all the alveoli in your lungs and gently flatten them out, their combined surface area would be roughly the size of a tennis court. This staggering, massive surface area is the secret to the lung's brilliance. Every single one of these microscopic spheres is wrapped in a dense, beautiful net of the tiny blood vessels we learned about in our last lesson, the capillaries. It is here, across a biological membrane, so impossibly thin, it defies imagination, that the true miracle of respiration occurs. The oxygen from the air you just breathed in, driven purely by the gentle laws of physics, slips effortlessly across the membrane and into the waiting red blood cells. In the exact same moment, the carbon dioxide carried by the blood slips across the membrane in the opposite direction, entering the alveolus, waiting patiently to be exhaled back out into the world. To truly appreciate the deep intelligence of this system, we must look at the exquisite mechanisms that protect it and the elegant physics that power it. The inner lining of your respiratory tree is an absolute marvel of self-cleaning engineering. From your nasal cavity all the way down to the smallest bronchioles, the walls are lined with specialized epithelial cells. Scattered among them are goblet cells, named for their beautiful chalice-like shape. These goblet cells continuously secrete a fine layer of sticky mucus that traps any remaining dust, pollen, or microscopic debris that manage to slip past your nose. But trapping the debris is only half the solution. The body must remove it. The epithelial cells are covered in millions of microscopic, hair-like projections called cilia. These cilia beat in a continuous, synchronized upward rhythm, a microscopic sweeping wave. They act as a tireless escalator, slowly and gently sweeping the debris-trapped mucus upward, away from the delicate depths of the lungs, back up the trachea to the throat, where it is harmlessly swallowed and destroyed by stomach acid without you ever even noticing. Your lungs are continuously, beautifully sweeping themselves clean while you sleep. But how does the air actually enter this deeply protected sanctuary? The lungs themselves are completely passive. They contain no skeletal muscle. They cannot expand or contract on their own. They are entirely reliant on a master muscle of profound strength and grace, the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a large dome-shaped sheet of skeletal muscle that sits right at the base of your ribcage, completely separating your chest cavity from your abdomen. It operates on a beautiful, fundamental law of physics discovered by the scientist Robert Boyle in the 1600s, which states that in a closed space, pressure and volume are inversely related. When your nervous system sends a quiet signal to inhale, your diaphragm contracts. As it contracts, it flattens out, pulling downward towards your stomach. Simultaneously, the tiny muscles between your ribs contract, lifting your rib cage slightly upward and outward. This gentle combined movement dramatically increases the volume of space inside your chest cavity. Because the space has suddenly grown larger, the air pressure inside your lungs instantly drops below the air pressure of the room around you. Nature absolutely abhors a vacuum. To balance the pressure, the heavier air from the outside world simply rushes through your nose and down your trachea, effortlessly inflating the lungs. You do not pull the air in. You simply create a welcoming space, and the atmosphere eagerly fills it. When it is time to exhale, the process is one of profound passive surrender. The diaphragm simply relaxes, naturally bowing back upward into its resting dome shape. The rib cage softly settles back down. The space inside the chest becomes smaller. The pressure gently rises, and the air is effortlessly pushed back out into the room. Inhalation is an active creation of space. Exhalation is a deep, peaceful letting go. There is one more microscopic miracle that makes this all possible. Because the inside of the alveoli is coated in a very thin film of water, the surface tension of that water naturally wants to pull the tiny spheres closed, making them collapse like deflated balloons. To prevent this, specialized cells in the alveoli produce a brilliant chemical mixture called surfactant. Surfactant breaks the surface tension of the water, acting like a microscopic lubricant, ensuring that the tiny air sacs remain perpetually open, beautifully compliant, and ready to receive the next breath. It is a perfect, continuous balance of chemistry and tension. So you see, this rhythmic, expanding system is far more than just a biological gas exchange. It is the very bridge between your conscious mind and the deepest automatic functions of your body. The respiratory system holds a uniquely privileged position in human anatomy. It is the only vital system in the entire body that is completely governed by the autonomic nervous system, meaning it runs perfectly on autopilot without your attention, yet can be instantly and effortlessly taken over by your conscious, voluntary control. You cannot simply decide to change your heart rate, to stop your digestion, or to lower your blood pressure, but you can always, at any moment, decide to change your breath. This dual control is a profound biological gift. When we experience stress, worry, or fear, our sympathetic nervous system, our internal accelerator, takes over, causing our breathing to become shallow, rapid, and entirely focused in the upper chest. This rapid breathing sends a continuous feedback loop of anxiety back to the brain. But because you have voluntary control over your diaphragm, you hold the absolute key to breaking this loop. By deliberately shifting your breathing, just as you are doing right now, you speak directly to your nervous system in a language it implicitly understands. When you consciously choose to take a slow, deep breath, pulling the air all the way down into the base of your lungs, you engage the full downward sweep of the diaphragm. As the diaphragm descends, it gently massages the vagus nerve, the massive cranial nerve that serves as the primary pathway for the parasympathetic nervous system, your internal brake pedal. A long, slow, deliberate exhalation is the most powerful signal of safety your body can generate. It physically tells the command center of your brain that there is no danger, no rush, and no need for the accelerator. In response, the brain releases the soothing neurotransmitters we learned about earlier. Your heart rate obediently slows its rhythm to match the calm cadence of your lungs. The muscles of your jaw and your shoulders willingly release their tension. The entire intricate architecture of your physiology yields to the gentle, rhythmic tide of the breath. As you lie here tonight, your body is engaged in this perfect silent transaction. Your diaphragm lowers, creating a quiet vacuum. The atmosphere of the earth rushes in, bringing the vital oxygen. The microscopic grape clusters of your alveoli perform their instantaneous, elegant exchange. The carbon dioxide is carried away on the gentle sigh of your exhalation. It is a tireless, completely dependable cycle of nourishment and release. You are perfectly tethered to the world around you, breathing in the atmosphere, completely supported and entirely safe. We have now mapped the delicate, expanding branches of the respiratory tree. We understand the elegant physics of the diaphragm, the vast microscopic surface of the alveoli, and the profound calming power of a simple, slow exhalation. We have successfully secured the oxygen, the vital spark required to keep the cellular fires burning deep within us. But oxygen alone is only half of the equation to build a fire. And you need not just the spark and the air, but the sturdy wood to burn. The body requires raw building blocks, energy, and nourishment harvested from the earth. Having now grasped how we breathe the atmosphere, we are perfectly prepared to understand how we absorb the earth. Let us leave the airy rhythmic chambers of the chest and smoothly travel down to the winding, transformative pathways of nourishment. When our journey resumes, we will follow the intricate journey of the food we eat as we begin our patient winding study of the digestive system. Let the calm, steady rhythm of your breathing anchor you here, completely relaxed, as we prepare to continue. Lesson 8, the Digestive System. In our previous session together, we traced the invisible, life-giving ocean of air as it flowed down into the delicate branches of your respiratory tree. We watched the microscopic, silent exchange where oxygen crossed into your bloodstream, providing the vital spark required to keep the cellular fires burning deep within you. But a spark alone cannot sustain a fire. To build and maintain the magnificent architecture of your body, you need raw materials. You need substance, energy, and nourishment harvested directly from the earth. Tonight, we take the next patient step in our journey. We are going to explore the winding, transformative pathways of nourishment. We are entering the highly specialized, deeply intelligent disassembly line of the digestive system. Think of this system not simply as a biological furnace, but as an elegant, meticulous alchemist. It takes the outside world, the plants and the elements of the earth, and systematically breaks them down into their most fundamental, invisible building blocks, seamlessly weaving them into the very fabric of your being. As we follow this winding path together, we will discover the quiet, rhythmic grace of how your body sustains itself while you rest. To truly understand this remarkable process, we must view the digestive system for what it fundamentally is: a single, continuous, highly specialized tube that runs straight through the center of your body. Anatomists call this the gastrointestinal tract, or the GI tract. From the moment it begins to the moment it ends, this winding canal is nearly 30 feet long in an adult. Everything inside this tube is technically still outside of your internal bodily environment until it crosses the microscopic cellular threshold into your bloodstream. The grand journey of nourishment begins in the mouth, or the oral cavity. Here, digestion is initiated through two beautifully synchronized methods: mechanical and chemical. The mechanical breakdown is performed by the teeth, incredibly hard structures anchored in your jaw that patiently crush and grind the food, vastly increasing its surface area. But simultaneously, a quiet chemical magic is already at work. Nestled in the tissues around your mouth are the salivary glands. As you chew, they release a gentle flow of saliva. This fluid is not just water. It contains a specialized enzyme called amylase, which immediately begins to break down complex carbohydrates and starches into simple, sweet sugars. Before the food has even left your mouth, the meticulous process of disassembly has begun. Once the food is sufficiently prepared into a soft, rounded mass called a bolus, your tongue naturally pushes it to the back of your throat. From this moment on, your conscious involvement completely ends. You hand the process over to the deep, involuntary wisdom of your autonomic nervous system. As you swallow, the food enters the esophagus, a muscular tube about 10 inches long that connects your throat to your stomach. The esophagus does not rely on gravity to move the food downward. Instead, it utilizes the smooth muscle tissue we learned about in our earlier sessions. The walls of the esophagus contract in a slow, rhythmic, wave-like motion called peristalsis. Imagine a gentle ocean swell rolling continuously forward. The muscles constrict just above the food and beautifully relax just below it, effortlessly sliding the nourishment downward. This rhythmic wave is so powerful and perfectly coordinated that you could successfully swallow a glass of water while hanging entirely upside down. At the base of the esophagus, the food passes through a tiny muscular ring called a sphincter and drops into the stomach. The stomach is a remarkably tough, J-shaped muscular pouch resting on the left side of your upper abdomen. If the mouth is the crushing mill, the stomach is the churning chemical vat. The inner walls of the stomach are lined with deep folds called rugae, which allow it to expand significantly to accommodate a large meal. But its true power lies in its incredibly potent secretions. The lining of the stomach constantly produces gastric juice, a mixture containing hydrochloric acid, an acid so strong it could dissolve a razor blade, and an enzyme called pepsin, which specifically targets and breaks apart dense proteins. To protect itself from its own corrosive power, the stomach continuously coats its entire inner surface in a thick, alkaline layer of mucus. Safe within this protective lining, the thick layers of smooth muscle wrap around the stomach in 3 different directions. They gently, relentlessly churn, twist, and knead the food, mixing it thoroughly with the acid until it is transformed from a solid mass into a thick, creamy, nutrient-rich liquid called chyme. This patient churning process can take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, a slow and deliberate preparation for the true magic of absorption. Once the chyme is perfectly prepared, the stomach slowly, drop by patient drop, releases it through another muscular valve into the very beginning of the small intestine. Despite its name, the small intestine is the longest section of your entire digestive tract, measuring roughly 20 feet in length. It is gently and beautifully coiled within your central abdomen. It is divided into 3 sections: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. While the stomach handles the rough chemical breakdown, the small intestine is the grand theater of absolute absorption. But the small intestine cannot do this monumental work entirely on its own. It relies on the assistance of 3 vital accessory organs that sit nearby, sending their brilliant chemical contributions through tiny ducts into the very first section of the intestine. First, there is the pancreas, a soft, glandular organ resting just behind the stomach. The pancreas is an unsung hero of digestion. Because the chyme arriving from the stomach is highly acidic, it would burn the delicate walls of the intestine. The pancreas instantly responds by secreting a powerful bath of bicarbonate, a natural antacid, that perfectly neutralizes the chyme. Alongside this, the pancreas delivers a cocktail of sophisticated enzymes designed to meticulously dismantle the remaining fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Next is the liver, the heaviest internal organ in your body, nestled securely under your right rib cage. The liver is a grand, bustling chemical factory, performing over 500 distinct functions. For digestion, its primary role is the production of bile, a dark green fluid that acts precisely like a biological dish soap. Because fats do not mix with water, they tend to clump together. Bile physically breaks these large fat droplets into millions of microscopic pieces, making it incredibly easy for the pancreatic enzymes to finally digest them. But the liver produces bile continuously, even when you are not eating. To solve this, the body utilizes the gallbladder, a small pear-shaped sac resting just beneath the liver. The gallbladder patiently stores and concentrates the bile, waiting for the exact moment you consume a meal containing fats, at which point it gently squeezes its contents into the small intestine. With all these chemicals perfectly mixed, the chyme travels slowly through the winding loops of the small intestine. The inner walls of this 20-foot tube are an absolute marvel of biological engineering. To maximize the absorption of the final, microscopic nutrients, the lining is not smooth. It is covered in millions of tiny, finger-like projections called villi. If you were to look at the inner wall of the small intestine under a microscope, it would not look like a tube. It would look like a lush, dense, gently swaying forest of velvet. Furthermore, every single cell making up those villi is covered in even smaller projections called microvilli. This intricate, repeating architecture increases the surface area of the small intestine to an astonishing degree. If you could lay it entirely flat, it would cover the expanse of a tennis court. As the liquid chyme washes over this vast, microscopic forest, the pure, raw nutrients, the amino acids, the simple sugars, the fatty acids, and the vitamins gently slip through the single layer of cells and are instantly swept away by the capillaries into the bloodstream, ready to be delivered
to every waiting cell in your body. Whatever remains unabsorbed after this long, winding journey finally passes into the large intestine, or the colon. Measuring about 5 feet long, the large intestine forms a thick, framing arch around the coiled small intestine. Its primary duty is reclamation. It gently sweeps up the remaining indigestible plant fibers and, most importantly, reabsorbs the vast amounts of water that were used throughout the digestive process, pulling it back into the body to keep you perfectly hydrated. But the large intestine is not an empty tube. It is a thriving, magnificent ecosystem. It is home to your microbiome, trillions of friendly, symbiotic bacteria spanning hundreds of different species. These microscopic passengers live in perfect harmony with you. In exchange for a warm, safe environment and the leftover fiber you cannot digest, they perform miraculous chemistry. They ferment the remaining matter, producing essential vitamins like vitamin K and certain B vitamins, which your colon then gracefully absorbs. They also crowd out harmful invaders and constantly train your immune system. You are a walking, breathing world, and you are never truly alone. So you see, this winding disassembly line is far more than a simple biological mechanism. It is the very foundation of your restoration, deeply and intimately tied to the peace you are experiencing right now.
In an earlier lesson, we discussed the two opposing branches of the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic fight-or-flight accelerator, and the parasympathetic rest and digest brake pedal. The digestive system is the ultimate beneficiary of that gentle brake pedal. When you are stressed or rushing through your day, your body diverts blood and energy away from your stomach and intestines, prioritizing the muscles and the brain. Digestion slows to a crawl. But as you lie here tonight, surrounded by quiet, having consciously slowed your breathing, your parasympathetic nervous system is in total control. It is sending a clear, sweeping signal to your gastrointestinal tract, opening the blood vessels, stimulating the gentle peristaltic waves, and encouraging the quiet secretion of those vital enzymes. Furthermore, the digestive system is so incredibly complex that it has its own independent nervous system woven directly into its walls. We call this the enteric nervous system, and scientists lovingly refer to it as the second brain. This second brain contains over 100 million neurons, more than are found in your entire spinal cord. This gut brain is in constant, whispering communication with the brain in your head. Perhaps the most beautiful connection between the two is chemical. Up to 95% of the serotonin in your body, the profound, calming neurotransmitter that regulates your mood, creates a sense of deep well-being, and prepares your mind for restorative sleep, is actually manufactured right there by the specialized cells and the friendly bacteria living within your digestive tract. The peace of your mind is inextricably linked to the peace of your physical center. As you drift closer to sleep, the meal you enjoyed hours ago is currently on this magnificent journey. The proteins are being carefully unraveled into the exact amino acids that will travel to your skeletal muscles tonight to repair the tiny tears of today's efforts. The complex carbohydrates have been transformed into the steady, quiet energy that will fuel your beating heart and your expanding lungs until the morning light. The earth has literally become you. It is a slow, rhythmic, flawless alchemy occurring in the deep, warm darkness of your physical being. We have now followed the winding, miraculous pathway of nourishment. We understand the physical crushing, the powerful chemical vat of the stomach, the vast velvet forests of the small intestine, and the thriving bacterial cities of the colon. We have seen how the body takes the world around it and transforms it
into the energy of life. But a system this vast, containing so many independent organs, factories, and miles of tubing, requires a magnificent level of long-term coordination. The nervous system we learned about earlier acts like a lightning flash, instant and fleeting. To manage the slow, hours-long process of digestion, or the years-long process of growth, the body needs a different kind of communication. It requires messages that are slow, deliberate, and deeply enduring. Having now grasped how we gather our physical building blocks, we are perfectly prepared to understand how the body organizes them over time. Let us leave the physical pathways of the gut and smoothly transition into the subtle, invisible world of chemical messengers. When our journey resumes, we will follow the slow, sweeping broadcasts of the body's internal radio stations as we begin our quiet, fascinating study of the endocrine system. Let the deep, warm comfort of your center anchor you here, ready for the next gentle step.
Lesson 9. The Endocrine System. In our last session together, we traced the slow winding path of the digestive tract, observing how the body patiently breaks down the world around us to harvest vital energy and raw materials. We saw that to manage such a long, intricate process, the body relies on more than just the rapid, fleeting sparks of the nervous system. While the nervous system acts like a sudden flash of lightning, instantaneous and brief, the body also requires a different kind of communication to manage the slow, sweeping changes of growth, metabolism, and deep restoration. Tonight, we step away from the physical tubing of the gut and enter a subtle, beautifully invisible world of chemical messengers. We are going to explore the body's grand, slow broadcasting network. We are beginning our quiet, fascinating study of the endocrine system. Think of this system not as a single, connected structure, but as a widely distributed alliance of quiet factories, all working in perfect concert to dictate the long-term moods and rhythms of your life. As we drift through this invisible network together, we will discover how a few microscopic drops of chemistry can entirely alter how you feel, how you heal, and how you eventually fall into a deep, peaceful sleep. The word endocrine comes from the Greek words endo, meaning within, and krinein, meaning to secrete or separate. Unlike your sweat glands or your salivary glands, which have little tubes or ducts to carry their products to the surface of the skin or the inside of your mouth, endocrine glands are completely ductless. They are entirely closed off from the outside world. Instead, these remarkable little organs manufacture their potent chemicals and gently release them directly into the warm, flowing rivers of your cardiovascular system. These chemical messengers are called hormones. The word hormone translates to that which sets in motion. To truly understand the elegance of the endocrine system, we must compare it to the nervous system we explored earlier. As we discussed, the nervous system is like a vast network of telephone wires. If the brain wants to move a specific toe, it sends an electrical impulse down a single, dedicated wire straight to that exact muscle. It is a private, direct, and incredibly fast conversation. The endocrine system, however, is a radio broadcasting station. When an endocrine gland secretes a hormone, it does not send it to one specific address. Instead, it drops the hormone into the bloodstream, allowing it to wash over every single cell in your entire body. It is a beautifully democratic broadcast. But if the hormone washes over everything, how does the body prevent chaos? How does a hormone meant to adjust your blood pressure not accidentally cause your bones to grow? The answer lies in a microscopic masterpiece of biological design known as the receptor. Every cell in your body is studded with thousands of highly specialized, intricately folded proteins called receptors. You can picture these receptors as exquisitely complex locks,
waiting on the surface of the cell membrane. A hormone floating by in the bloodstream acts as a beautifully crafted, uniquely shaped key. As the hormone drifts past a bone cell, a muscle cell, and a brain cell, it gently brushes against their receptors. If the shape of the hormone does not perfectly match the shape of the lock, absolutely nothing happens. The hormone simply floats away on the current. But when the hormone encounters its specific target cell, a cell possessing the exact receptor designed to fit it, the key slides perfectly into the lock. The moment that physical connection is made, a silent, profound alarm is triggered deep inside the target cell, commanding it to change its behavior. It might tell the cell to manufacture a new protein, to open a channel to let in sugar, or to begin the slow process of dividing. The message is delivered without a single wire ever being crossed. To appreciate the sheer scale of this invisible coordination, we must gently visit the major broadcasting stations scattered throughout your body. Starting from the very top. Hidden deep within the protective vault of your skull, resting almost exactly behind your eyes, is a tiny almond-sized structure called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the grand bridge between the lightning of the nervous system and the chemistry of the endocrine system. It acts as the ultimate conductor. It constantly monitors the temperature of your blood, your nutrient levels, and your emotional state. When the hypothalamus decides a chemical adjustment is needed, it whispers a command down a tiny stalk to its immediate neighbor, the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is often lovingly referred to as the master gland. It is no larger than a single green pea, sitting in a tiny protective saddle of bone at the base of your brain. Despite its humble size, the pituitary holds immense power. When it receives a signal from the hypothalamus, the pituitary drops its own specialized hormones into the bloodstream. These hormones are not meant for regular cells. They are management hormones. They travel through the blood to gently command the other endocrine glands in your body, telling them when it is time to work and when it is time to rest. If we follow the bloodstream down into your neck, wrapping softly around the front of your windpipe, we find the thyroid gland. Shaped like a beautiful, resting butterfly, the thyroid is the grand regulator of your metabolism. Metabolism is not just about weight, it is the fundamental speed at which your entire body operates. The hormones produced by the thyroid enter your cells and dictate exactly how fast they should burn the oxygen and nutrients we gathered in our earlier lessons. If the thyroid releases a large amount of hormone, the cellular fires burn brightly, generating heat and rapid energy. If the thyroid slows down, as it is doing right now while you rest, the cellular engines drop into a low, quiet idle. The butterfly in your neck is setting the deep, internal tempo of your night. Descending further, resting like two tiny triangular hats on top of your kidneys in your lower back, are the adrenal glands. The adrenals are your body's dedicated stress management centers. They are famously responsible for producing adrenaline, the hormone that instantly accelerates your heart and opens your lungs when you are startled. But they also produce a slower, more enduring hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is not inherently bad. In the morning, a natural, healthy surge of cortisol is exactly what gently wakes you up and gives you the energy to face the day. However, when the sun sets, your adrenal glands must quietly power down, halting the production of cortisol to allow the peaceful, restorative processes of the evening to take over. And finally, returning to the center of your abdomen, tucked quietly behind the stomach, we revisit the pancreas. We met the pancreas in our study of digestion, where it provides vital enzymes. But the pancreas lives a double life. Scattered throughout its tissue are tiny islands of endocrine cells called the islets of Langerhans. These tiny islands are the absolute masters of your body's fuel supply. When you eat a meal and sugar floods into your bloodstream, the pancreas releases the hormone insulin. Insulin acts as a universally accepted key, swimming to almost every cell in your body, unlocking their doors so they can draw the sugar out of the blood and use it for energy. Hours later, as you sleep and your blood sugar gently begins to drop, the pancreas releases a beautifully opposing hormone called glucagon. Glucagon travels to your liver, politely asking it to release its stored energy reserves back into the blood, ensuring your brain and heart have a steady, unbroken supply of fuel all through the night. This grand, shifting architecture of chemistry is the very principle that dictates your experience of reality. But to truly appreciate its relevance to this exact moment, as you lie here seeking rest, we must look closely at one final, magnificent gland. Deep within the exact center of your brain, buried beneath the two hemispheres, is a structure so small it resembles a single grain of rice, shaped somewhat like a tiny pine cone. This is the pineal gland. For centuries, ancient philosophers and anatomists revered the pineal gland. René Descartes famously believed it to be the seat of the soul. Today, we know its function is deeply tied to the most ancient, fundamental rhythm of life on Earth, the rising and setting of the sun. The pineal gland is directly wired to the optic nerves of your eyes. Throughout the bright hours of the day, as sunlight enters your eyes, a signal is sent deep into the brain, commanding the pineal gland to remain entirely dormant. But as the earth turns, as the sun dips below the horizon and the shadows lengthen into evening, the absence of light changes everything. As the light fades from your environment, the inhibitory signal is lifted. The pineal gland quietly awakens in the dark. It begins to gather the serene neurotransmitter serotonin, and through a gentle chemical transformation, it synthesizes the absolute master hormone of rest, melatonin. Melatonin is the biological lullaby of the human body. As the pineal gland drops this magnificent hormone into your bloodstream, the radio broadcast begins. The message washes over your entire internal universe. When melatonin reaches the brainstem, it turns down the volume of your conscious, racing thoughts. When it reaches the hypothalamus, it commands your core body temperature to gently drop by a fraction of a degree, a physical necessity for entering deep sleep. When it reaches your muscles, it invites the deep, heavy relaxation you are feeling right now. Your current feelings of drowsiness, the heavy pull of your eyelids, the slow cadence of your breathing, these are not simply the absence of energy. They are an active, perfectly orchestrated chemical symphony. You are being gently guided into the restorative dark by a cascade of microscopic keys fitting perfectly into millions of waiting locks. Your endocrine system has assessed the environment. It knows the work of the day is done. The stress hormones of the adrenal glands have receded like an outgoing tide. The thyroid has lowered the tempo of your metabolism to a quiet, peaceful hum. The pancreas has secured your fuel supply for the long hours ahead. And the pineal gland is singing its chemical lullaby, wrapping your consciousness in a soft, heavy blanket of profound biological safety. We have now explored the subtle, sweeping broadcasts of the body's internal radio stations. We understand the locks and keys of the receptors, the grand coordination of the master glands, and the quiet, heavy lullaby of melatonin washing through your bloodstream. But as we have seen, the blood is the great river of the body. It carries the vital oxygen, the rich nutrients from your digestion, and now, the complex chemical messages of the endocrine system. With all this immense cellular activity, with all these fires burning and chemicals reacting, waste is inevitably produced. If the river is not constantly cleaned, the delicate homeostasis we have marveled at would be lost. Having now grasped how the body balances its moods and rhythms, we are perfectly prepared to understand how it purifies its waters. Let us leave the quiet, chemical factories of the brain and smoothly travel down to the masterful filtration plants resting in your lower back. When our journey resumes, we will follow the graceful, vital process of purification as we begin our final, cleansing study of the urinary system. Let the deep, heavy peace of your perfectly balanced chemistry anchor you here as we prepare for the final step.
Lesson 10. The Urinary System. In our previous session together, we marveled at the subtle, sweeping symphony of the endocrine system. We watched as the pineal gland released its chemical lullaby of melatonin, washing over the body's internal rivers to invite the deep, heavy restoration of sleep. But as we have explored throughout this journey, life is a process of constant activity. Your 30 trillion cellular citizens are tireless workers. They consume oxygen, they burn fuel, and they follow chemical commands. Yet, like any grand city or industrious factory, this activity inevitably produces waste. Every chemical reaction, every heartbeat, and every firing neuron leaves behind a microscopic footprint. Byproducts that, if left to accumulate, would slowly cloud the pristine internal environment we call homeostasis. Tonight, we take our final cleansing step into the quiet depths of your anatomy. We are going to explore the body's master purification plant. We are entering the domain of the urinary system. Think of this system not merely as a means of waste disposal, but as the ultimate sophisticated guardian of your body's chemistry. It is the silent regulator of your blood pressure, the master balancer of your internal oceans, and the fine tuner of your blood's pH. As we explore these masterful filtration plants together, we will discover how your body keeps its internal waters crystal clear and perfectly balanced, even as you drift towards the edge of dreams. To understand the urinary system, we must look toward the small of your back, nestled just below the ribs, tucked safely behind the other organs of your abdomen, where sit two bean-shaped structures known as the kidneys. Though they are only about the size of a computer mouse, the kidneys are arguably the hardest working filtration systems on the planet. To appreciate their dedication, consider the volume of their work. Every single drop of blood in your body passes through these two organs approximately 40 times every day. In a single 24-hour period, your kidneys filter nearly 180 liters of fluid. This means that while you rest tonight, your entire blood supply is being scrubbed clean, molecule by molecule, every few minutes. The primary goal of the urinary system is to maintain a stable internal environment. It accomplishes this through a three-part process: filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. The journey begins with the renal arteries, which branch directly off the great aorta we learned about in our cardiovascular study. These arteries carry a massive high-pressure surge of blood directly into the kidneys. Once inside, the blood is funneled into the most miraculous structure of the system, the nephron. A nephron is the fundamental functional unit of the kidney. It is an incredibly tiny, complex arrangement of microscopic tubes and blood vessels. Each of your kidneys contains roughly 1 million of these miniature purification plants. If you were to take all the nephrons from just one kidney and stretch them out end to end, they would span nearly 5 miles of intricate biological tubing. At the head of each nephron is a tangled ball of leaking capillaries called the glomerulus. The pressure of the incoming blood is so high that it literally forces the watery portion of the blood, the plasma, through the walls of the capillaries and into a collecting cup called Bowman's capsule. This is a non-selective process. It is as if you took all the contents of your kitchen pantry and dumped them into a giant sieve. The big things, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the large proteins, stay in the bloodstream because they are too large to fit through the mesh. But everything else, the water, the salts, the sugars, the vitamins, and the toxic wastes, is pushed out into the nephron. This liquid is now called filtrate. However, your body cannot afford to lose all those valuable nutrients. If the process stopped here, you would lose all your body's water and sugar in a matter of minutes. This is where the second, more intelligent phase begins, reabsorption. As the filtrate travels down the winding 5-mile journey of the nephron's tubules, the cells lining the tubes act like highly trained inspectors. They recognize the valuable materials, the glucose, the amino acids, and the vital electrolytes like sodium and potassium. Through active and passive transport, the kidney grabs these good molecules and pushes them back out of the tube and into a secondary net of capillaries that wrap around the nephron. The body reclaims exactly what it needs, leaving only the waste and excess water behind. The final liquid that remains at the end of this journey is urine. It consists primarily of water, excess salts, and a nitrogen-rich waste product called urea, which is produced when your liver breaks down old proteins. To truly appreciate the deep intelligence of the kidneys, we must look past simple waste removal and observe their role as the master architects of your blood pressure and hydration. Your kidneys are incredibly sensitive to the concentration of your blood. Imagine your bloodstream is like a bowl of soup. If there is too much salt and not enough water, the soup becomes too thick. If there is too much water, the soup becomes thin and flavorless. When your brain, specifically the hypothalamus we met in our endocrine lesson, senses that your blood is becoming too concentrated or salty, it releases a chemical called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. This hormone travels through the blood and docks with the receptors in your kidney's nephrons. When the ADH key turns the lock in the nephron, it commands the kidney to open special water channels called aquaporins. These channels allow the kidney to reabsorb even more water back into the bloodstream, making your urine more concentrated and dark. This is your body's way of hoarding every precious drop of hydration. Conversely, if you have been drinking plenty of water, the brain stops releasing ADH. The aquaporins close, and the kidneys allow the excess water to pass through freely, resulting in clear, diluted urine. By constantly adjusting the volume of water in your blood, the kidneys directly control your blood pressure. More water in the blood means higher pressure. Less water means lower pressure. But the kidney's reach extends even further into the very chemistry of your life. They are the primary regulators of your blood's pH, the delicate balance between acidity and alkalinity. Your body must maintain a blood pH of almost exactly 7.4. If it drifts even slightly toward being too acidic, your enzymes will stop working and your cells will begin to fail. To prevent this, the kidneys perform a beautiful chemical exchange. They can sense the level of hydrogen ions in the blood. If the blood becomes too acidic, the nephrons actively secrete or push those excess acid ions out of the blood and into the urine, while simultaneously manufacturing and reabsorbing bicarbonate, a natural buffer that neutralizes the acid. It is a continuous microscopic titration, keeping your internal ocean as perfectly balanced as a pristine reef. If your mind is still following along, try visualizing this. Two quiet, dark organs in your lower back, working as master chemists to ensure your blood is never too thick, never too thin, and always perfectly balanced. Once the urine has been refined and perfected by the millions of nephrons, it drains into a central collecting area in the kidney called the renal pelvis. From here, the journey out of the body begins. The urine flows down two long, slender tubes called ureters. These are not just passive straws. Like the esophagus we studied in the digestive system, the ureters use rhythmic, wave-like peristaltic contractions to move the urine downward toward the bladder. This ensures that even if you are lying flat on your back, as you are now, the urine continues to flow safely away from the kidneys and toward its temporary storage. The urinary bladder is a hollow, muscular sac located in the lower pelvis, and it is an incredibly elastic organ, lined with the same rugae, or folds, that we found in the stomach. As it fills, the bladder can expand from the size of a small plum to the size of a grapefruit. Inside the walls of the bladder are specialized stretch receptors. When the bladder reaches a certain volume, these receptors send an electrical signal up the spinal cord to the brain. This is the sensation of needing to go. However, because we are creatures of high coordination, the body utilizes two sphincters to guard the exit, known as the urethra. The internal sphincter is involuntary, opening automatically when the bladder is full, but the external sphincter is under your voluntary conscious control, allowing you to choose the appropriate time for release. So you see, this system of filtration and flow is the ultimate guardian of your tranquility. It is the reason you can eat a variety of foods, drink different amounts of water, and experience different levels of activity without your internal chemistry ever spinning out of control. As you lie here tonight, settling into the heavy embrace of sleep, your kidneys are entering a specific nocturnal rhythm. Under the influence of the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest brake pedal, and the rising levels of melatonin, your kidneys actually slow their filtration rates slightly. The brain increases the production of ADH during the night, telling the kidneys to conserve as much water as possible. This is a profound biological mercy. It ensures that your blood stays hydrated and your blood pressure remains stable, while simultaneously allowing the bladder to fill much more slowly. This internal coordination is what allows you to remain in the deep, restorative stages of sleep for hours at a time without the need to wake. Furthermore, the kidneys are currently performing a deep cellular cleanup of the day's activities. During the day, as your muscles moved and your brain thought, they produced a steady stream of metabolic waste. Now, in the stillness of the night, with your cardiovascular system providing a steady, calm flow of blood, the kidneys can meticulously scrub these byproducts away. They are filtering out the excess salts from your dinner, the metabolic acids from your afternoon walk, and the broken down remnants of the hormones that navigated you through your day. They are purifying the very medium in which your life exists. The urinary system is the final piece of the puzzle we have built together. We have seen the framework of the bone, the pull of the muscle, the spark of the nerve, the rhythm of the heart, the expansion of the breath, and the alchemy of the gut. But none of those systems could function without this final, quiet purifier. The kidneys ensure that the stage is always clean, the chemistry is always balanced, and the environment is always welcoming for the miracle of life to continue. As we conclude this final chapter of our journey inward, take a moment to observe the totality of your being. You are a masterpiece of overlapping, perfectly synchronized systems. Right now, your skeletal system is surrendering its weight to the bed. Your muscular system has released its tension. Your nervous system is broadcasting a slow, chemical lullaby. Your heart is beating a calm, steady rhythm, and your lungs are expanding in a slow, effortless tide. Your digestive system is quietly distributing the energy of the earth, and your urinary system is flawlessly purifying your internal oceans. You are not a collection of separate parts. You are an integrated living universe. Every system we have studied tonight is working in this very second to ensure your safety, your health, and your peace. You are supported. You are balanced. You are clean. You are whole. The journey into the body is ultimately a journey into the self. By understanding the profound intelligence that lives beneath your skin, you can move through the world with a deeper sense of gratitude and a more profound trust in the quiet, tireless wisdom that keeps you alive.